And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hit and Sit Show. This is episode number 26 on your calendar, Wednesday, April the 19th. I am David Bear, your host today, with from the pitcher from Siteman Pure and I Swing Suncoast. We've got a couple of new faces here on the panel with us today, and a couple returning. We got Joel Sanchez, the shortstop from S&E, swinging DeMarini. Bradley Jones, the outfielder / utility man from Resmondo, swinging Miken. Sport Williams, the MVP of every tournament he played last year, from True and swinging DeMarini as well. And, of course, as always, DW from conferenceuSSSA.com. We are going to go into several things today, talking about the duel, recovery, upcoming duel, all that fun stuff. Before we get into all of that, though, one thing I do want to mention is shout out there. It's in a way, it's kind of a sad shout out because unfortunately it's a bad injury. But Connor Miller, the young man who broke his leg at the duel, hopefully he's doing well. I spoke to him this morning. He's recovering, a lot of pain, but recovering, moving forward. Hopefully he recovers quickly, gets back to the game as quick as he chooses to. So duel. Let's talk about how that went for everybody. Joel, we're going to start with you. You had several games in there. You won several. You beat, looks like Rebel, Roofx. You beat True, NFM, Dirty Vegas. Couple of losses. Looks like they were all in the folks that your caliber there. We got a couple of major losses. MPT, Monster, lost to Sports Reach once, and looks like Prime Time. They had a good game against y'all. How did your duel go? What's your thoughts on the guys you played? Do you feel like you played to expectation? A little less, a little more?
My thing has always been, I'm not a very good look at the statistics type of thing. I think you know me pretty well in the sense of where, I like to read in between the lines, watch every nook and cranny in the game, the body language, the hustle, the things that you can't keep stats of. Because if you look at our stats, we have in both duels maybe two dudes. I'm safe for saying two dudes that hit 700. And we went 3-2 and 2-2. So if you're winning games by hitting 400, somebody didn't watch the game properly, or we happen to, it's like one of those rounds of golf where you don't take score. It's like one of those things. But overall, the duel went better than expected. Not statistically, but in a sense of where the competition is, I think, in my opinion, has gotten better. Like A teams, AA teams, and major teams, there's still a distinction. Like, we played some two heavy set. I believe it was an A team and then a AA team, like McClanahan and Mooch. They tag team with that. That's Roofx, and they were oh man, what a mix that is. That is a whole highlight reel in itself. Watching those guys play, that was a great game. We had the wind howling inward, and it was just like a snowball fight mixed with capture the flag. It was, that's the type of game we had. And then we ran into MPT. And it goes to show you that, you really do have a giant gap, whether it be AA to major. Like, every single major squad, they have those guys that it doesn't matter how hard the wind's blowing in. It doesn't matter how bad of a day you are. It's just the fundamentals and the swing and the hit to wrist ratio. Like, everyone wants to caveat and just blame it on the equipment and they're doing something. They just want to get mad that they're not hitting the ball as hard as these cats. That's the reason these cats are in major. And I got no problem losing the major cats like that. I got no problem with that because there's a couple of them that I stepped on. And then John Williams and Bama, they're like, oh, watch this. I can do a bit. That was pretty awesome to watch. And then, but overall, the duel was actually pretty good. We have a pretty stacked defense. There's a lot of things that happen defensive-wise. And like I said before, the competition just made it that much hard. Every game was a battle. There's Dirty Vegas. There was Mr. Williams here. That True game, I thought it lasted forever. That was a long game between us. And then, but overall, 3-2 and 2-2. If you look at my past, my very first duel, I started 0-2 and 1-2. I think we're in the right direction,
Yep, totally get it. I know that the duel is a big thing to get everybody going. Points are always a good thing. Glad to hear you had a pretty good, successful one, and you walked away injury free. That's a good thing. Moving forward, Bradley, Obviously with Resmondo, y'all are expected to play a lot of games at the Duel. You won, it looks like, against Van Wert, Cheap Suits, Rebel, Chick-fil-A, Bay Area, the A team, JBL, the Double A team, Competitive Edge, Beloli, Epic, Aristotle, Monsta, and then Monsta again. Only a couple losses in there. JBL, Double A major, whatever you want to call them, and Monsta, the other major team that you got a loss there too. How did your Hall of Fame weekend go? Did you do you have any thoughts on any of the guys you played? Any of the lower teams kind of stand out to you? Anybody show out, or any thoughts on anybody you played overall?
In the conference you can overlook, right? Like your Friday night games are going to be tough all the way through Sunday. Just the caliber of teams throughout the conference in a whole are just, them dudes they know they're there to compete, and they want to beat whoever they're taking the field with, right? So obviously in the first duel we scuffled a little bit in that second game, but it's going to happen. It is what it is. I thought we made a pretty good run to get back to finish third, but at the end of the day, that's not what we wanted, right? Like, we expect to win, and we fell short of what we wanted to do. Even after playing all those games, we still expected to get back to the championship game and force the if game, but we fell short. Obviously not having Buddy and Briggs there in that first duel early on hurts us defensively, just because them guys can go get it in the outfield, right? And you're forced to put Marsh in center. And Marsh is arguably one of the best players in the country that can play any position at a very high caliber, right? So it's not they were hurt defensively, it's just more throws guys into uncomfortable positions and, forces a different look. But, I thought we did well. Obviously, it's not what we wanted. And then, the second duel, we obviously, did exactly what we wanted to do and took care of business. So overall, I think it was a pretty good weekend. Obviously, you want to win both just to capture all those points and things of that nature. But, we've got a really good team. All of our guys gel well together. The new pickups fit right in. I think it's going to be one heck of a year for us.
Completely agree. Just obviously, I wasn't there, just kind of watching y'all play. I definitely felt that this Resmondo team has less of a if you have a hole in a major lineup. I feel like you have less holes this year than last. I feel like it's going to be a really good year for y'all.
Yeah.
Sport, obviously, Florida's success for you. It rolls out really well, and going from the B World MVP, going to the first duel this year as an A team, you had a really good duel. Beat some folks. It looks like you beat Beloli, Classic Glass, the Double A team, Prime Time, Seminoles, a Double A team, the Bay Area A team. Your losses were only to folks that are outside of your class. Well, no, sorry, Aristotle's A team. Sports Reach, S&E, West Point, Aristotle got a couple losses there, but it sounded like a pretty successful weekend. How did you feel it went? Do you have any thoughts? Anybody you played? Did anybody kind of stand out? Do you feel that your guys on the team are really rising up to the fact that you're now A as compared to B?
Man, I'm going to be honest with you. We got a great young team. We come out of the first game against a great Sports Reach team. I feel like, it was a little bit of nerves from younger guys that haven't played in the duel or just guys that haven't played it, period. So we was a little off that game, but we brought it together as a team and did what we could. And after that first loss, nerves got away and we turned into the team that we know we are. And like you said, we ran off a couple games, beat some higher class teams, and gave S&E a good game. Like you said, it definitely took forever, but it was a good hard fought game. And we got a bunch of young guys on our team, man, that stand out that should have already been here. And I'm highly pleased with what we have. Our chemistry is above the roof. We had each other's back on every occasion. There's no negativity going on with us. I'm really, really excited, to see how it goes forward. But I think we went off to a great start. We set a goal as a team to, try to make the major and hopefully do good in the A, and I think we're on the right track.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anytime that you, as an A team in particular, especially these bigger events, if you can finish above 500 for the weekend, that's a big deal. Big amount of points, get you a good head start on the season, especially since y'all didn't go to Vegas, I don't believe. So you get a head start into some seeding a little bit later in the tournaments, and that in its own right is much better than having to play into a major team in round 2 on a 300-foot field. DW, obviously you cover tons of games. You got to get everybody's pictures. You got to see all the teams play. What's your thoughts, overview of the duel this weekend? How did it go for you?
Yeah, the tournament had great weather. The competition was as good as it's ever been. There weren't quite as many upsets as usual, but there were the upsets. I'm going to go through my notes real quick. Resmondo, overwhelming offense, as good as we've seen on the small fields and big fields to start a season in a number of years. They might get mad at me. There's some bulletin board material for you. I think their defense is more of a AA level defense. You mentioned Overstreet. Bradley mentioned Overstreet. He's probably an underrated infielder. I'm seeing a lot of good defense out of him, but I don't see every game.
Overstreet's jumped in and played. I mean, his glove is unmatched. I mean, it's really good.
Yeah, he's looking good. Bazat was hurt the second duel. Everett Williams had a bad knee, like you said, a swollen knee. Resmondo survived the big scare against Epic in the second duel. Came back, won on a walk-off homer by Buddy Wolf. That got them going. The offense took over from there, and they dominated the second duel. And they kept getting home team a lot, which is important for Resmondo because they really do rely on the offense. So they're going to need these points so they get the number 1 or 2 seed for the major so that they're home team most of the time. Monster. They don't have a lot of lefties. I think their only lefty is really the pitcher, Mike Jacobson. But they still did well. They had the second best offense in the tournament. All of their question marks in the offseason, we knew they could play, right? But their question marks were Tyler Story. What does he do? He goes out, gets MVP of the first duel. Heath Barnes at shortstop looked great, as we thought he would. And Mike Jacobson at pitcher was a big question mark, and he won a lot of games against a lot of good teams. Don't forget, Jacobson and Heath Barnes were the 1 and 2 hitters on precision last year before Jacobson got those hand injuries and he couldn't swing the bat.
Did you say Monster doesn't have any lefties?
What's that?
Did you say Monster doesn't have any lefties?
Yeah, who's the other lefty? Am I forgetting?
Kendall, Wick, Yates.
Oh, shoot, Yates and Wick. All right, strike that. We'll move on to MPT. Thanks for pointing that out. Yates did have a pretty big weekend. Wick was just, there's a couple of games in that first tournament that they won. He was just hitting angry home runs, like first pitch, just whacking it. You're right about the lefties. MPT Reynolds, 2 good finishes, but their defense and their offense let them down at different times. They were very close to winning both tournaments, but they end up with no wins. Caton and Collins at the top of the order. Think about that. That just moves all those other big sticks down, just extends their lineup. They should have a good year. Of course, Philip Washington was out with the suspension. Competitive edge imploded defensively, and that brought their offense down when their defense didn't perform. They had one of the worst games against MPT defensively we've ever seen at the major level. Brandon Streets hurt his hand swinging a bat in the offseason. That injury does not look good, and they need him badly, and it could linger for a long time. I think he's going to the doctor or specialist again this week. The umpiring was good. One of my pet peeves I want the umpires to look at is the chop swing. We had a lot of chop swings in Vegas, a lot of chop swings at the Hall of Fame. And when you do a chop swing, it surprises the umpire. So they don't think, I got to call that as an out. So I think the umpires need to revisit that, maybe put out a bulletin about what a chop swing is. And real quick, there were players getting IVs that I think was helping them. I don't know who was giving the IVs, but they were getting them. There was a tremendous amount of, even though the players were tired, they were hitting the gaps, doubles and triples. It was pretty impressive display of offense, especially by Resmondo and Monsta. Sports Reach is back. They looked like they were the top AA team in the tournament. Smash It looked good in the second event. They went 1 and 2 in the first event. Brewfax played well at times. They upset Competitive Edge, and then they had Monsta all but beat. Monsta had to score 13 in the bottom of the 7th to win and knock Brewfax. Otherwise, Brewfax would have been there on Sunday morning in the Final Four. Aristotle had that nice 2-win run to get into the stadium against Resmondo on Saturday, so they made some memories there. Prime Time had a nice run in the second tournament. True had that big run in the first tournament after losing bad to Sports Reach, like Sport mentioned. And pretty much every team had their ups and downs, but they had at least one big moment or upset that kind of gives them hope. And that's what the Hall of Fame Classic is all about, giving conference teams hope that they can improve and do what they need to do throughout the season.
Absolutely. And it's the duel can be extremely grindy. It can really hurt some opinions, averages, all that fun stuff. And I think that's where we're going to go to next. We're going to talk about some differences in playing on the turf in Viera compared to playing in Vegas, things like that, and the ball itself, how it performed compared to the major. So, Joel, DW talked about this. I don't know if he mentioned it right then, but he says that he didn't see a bad hop in the entire duel. Obviously, turf, you should get a good hop. Being a shortstop and middle infielder, that kind of thing, how is Viera different than other softball fields? You have a longer throw. You can use the turf to skip, all that fun stuff. But what is there about Viera in particular that's different than other locations? You're muted, Joel.
You're muted.
Good.
Silly Mike. So my first initial thought was, like the popular theory, it'd be like, oh my God, it's turf. Now we have no real infielders. Bring back the dirt. At first, I hopped along that bandwagon, and then not every turf is the same. Like, not even a little bit. Because Vegas, whenever you hit the ball right into the ground, for some reason that first one, it like builds up all this potential energy, and it hits on the second bounce, and it takes off. So you got to get real ready for that bounce. And if you're one of those dudes that like me, I like to play in the grass, the Bermuda grass is going to meet the turf. So once it hits that second bounce and it tosses, if it hits that grass, it's not bouncing. So you're going to expect the bounce, and you're going to ole it, and you're going to look like a proper idiot. So it's like, you really got to understand where you're at. That's why, like, whenever you see, like, most of the guys that, at least the guys that I hang out with, like, we go to take grounders, like, before a game. It's really just like hand-eye coordination. You really got to feel the elements. Like, that's why I like how different every turf is. Like, that Vegas one shoots off. This one in Viera is mushy until it gets wet. And then the wet really is that is, I don't care how good you are. Like, everyone becomes an A team as soon as that turf gets wet. Like, you need to know how to hit it, and better, you need to know how to catch it. Because as soon as it skips one time, it's barely getting off the ground, and it's hovering. There was times, and then you got the complete opposite, where when it was dry, I've had balls that didn't bounce at all. It was like a magnet on the turf, and it would go like it wouldn't bounce like at all. It would stay down, and like you as an infielder told, oh, stay down. And sometimes you can't put your glove on the ground unless you want to step on it and you want to do a barrel roll. But like there was times where it would hit the tip of my glove because I couldn't put my glove all the way down and run and make the throw at the same time. It was very interesting. So it's like, and then, but the worst turf I ever met was the one in Indiana, because that one has like the cork and the sand, and that made everyone's backhand look like they were special. So it was like, you're not about that. But the Viera turf, it's spongy, it's wet, you really got to pay attention. But when it's dry, it's like, and then you got to know what type of infielder you have amongst you. Like me, I like to catch, look, step, throw, because that's as fast as my brain can operate. Mr. Barnes, he told me, you got to get rid of it. I go, what? It's like, as soon as you catch that ball, you got to get rid of it right away. And sure enough, he doesn't care if he bounces it, if he lob passes it, if he throws it behind his back. He gets it, gone, boom. I'm like, that's interesting. You know, and he gets the job done. He gets the job done. So each infielder, you got to find your own little technique, but you really got to pay attention to the elements. And I feel like that's making the game as fair because not all turfs are the same. So you really got to, that whole, they taking it with the rear infielders. I think it's keeping it pretty even. I would say like that as close to an association of like golf, where it's like they mess with the course, the par 5 to a par 3. You know what I'm saying? So like it'll be like close to the equivalent on that one.
Makes sense. So basically what I'm hearing from you there is if you're in Vieira, as long as it doesn't rain, the turf's going to be spongy and you're going to be okay. If it starts to rain, all bets are off. Got it. So Bradley, as a hitter in Vieira, right, we always talk about Florida as a place where averages go to die. It's never easy to hit in a baseball field. It's never easy to hit realistically on a big field for one, but in Florida with the humidity. As a hitter, why do you think that in Vieira in particular that these on base percentages go down? Is it because it's a baseball field, more space? What do you think in that standpoint?
Oh, it's a tough one. I think a lot of it goes to, the infielders are able to play so far back, so it doesn't look like there's very many holes, right? Like, the defense in the conference is already second to none. You know what I mean? So when they're able to scoot back another 10, 15 feet and rely on being able to just get rid of it and bouncing it across, it makes hitting tough. I would rather play in Vieira because you go to those smaller fields, I feel like me personally, I have to take off my swing a little bit to try to keep it in. You know what I mean? To whereas in Vieira, I feel like I can just cut it loose, and if you make an out, you make an out, right? Obviously, that's not the goal, but I feel like when I can just get in there and try to hammer it, it works out better for me because I don't have to take anything off my swing because I'm not good when I have to take off my swing, right? Like I try to be too cute, too perfect, but the big field can be mind-boggling sometimes, especially in Vieira because of the wind, right? One inning, it might be blowing straight out, and the next half inning it might be blowing in. So I think more than anything, it's probably mentally speaking, as far as why averages drop and things of that nature. And again, the infielders can play so far back, it makes the holes, instead of looking giant, they look like they're smaller. So I don't know. It's different for everybody. I would rather play on the big fields though. So it's different for me.
Totally get from a defensive standpoint for you as an outfielder, speaking from a stadium ball compared to a pro-am, the stadium ball, at least from what I can see, tends to hang more. Do you as an outfielder feel like on these smaller fields with a pro-am, hey, I need to get the angle to cut that ball off as compared to the stadium ball on a baseball field? I've got to go get it because it's going to hold up for me. Which one do you feel that way? Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. It's different, right? Like every swing's different. The worst thing about left field is probably the knuckleballs. I feel like with a stadium, you don't get as many knuckleballs as you do with a pro-am. So, and obviously, running those gaps is just a different story in itself. Balls hang up forever and you feel like you run a mile and you should get there and you end up being nowhere close, so I don't know. It's different. But I like the challenge of being on the big field and trying to go get balls. So I don't know. I'd rather be in the outfield than trying to catch some of those balls that are scorching through the infield. I'll tell you that.
So you're saying you'd rather be in the outfield than catch a ball that you hit at third base. Got it. Okay. All right. So sport, I know Bradley there just mentioned the wind, Vieira wind. Oh, it's terrible. How is that? Is this something that you, pitcher to pitcher, do you feel like you just get used to the fact that it's blowing weird? What do you think when you look at the bracket? Oh crap, I'm on Red Easton. We're never going to get good wind. Like, do you feel that way? Do you adjust to different fields? What do you do mentally to change that?
First, I don't really pay attention to the field part until I'm actually out there because I noticed that the wind can do something this batter, and then all of a sudden the next batter is doing something different. Same thing with each inning. So what I try to do is get there a little early and pay attention to the other pitchers, what they're doing, what their ball's doing, or before the game I'm throwing multiple balls because I throw a couple different pitches and I hold them a couple different ways and they do different things. but the wind is really, really difficult to adjust and to limit walks, and you already got hitters that aren't going to swing unless it's a strike anyway. So it makes it really, really hard. But that's what I try to do. I try to pay attention to the game before me on that field, and then in between each batter, if you pay attention to me or look at me, I take my time to kind of see what the wind is going to be doing when I toe that rubber, and then I try to go with my pitch then and try to do my defense the same way.
Totally get it. So you adjust based on what you're seeing, depending on batter to batter. Sometimes you're going, if you're like, oh, the wind's going to push this ball away from a righty, and it just doesn't do what you want it to do. You just kind of deal with it, right?
Pretty much. Try to make the batter have to think about that wind too when I throw one pitch, just to see what it does. Just to have him thinking as much as I do, because I feel like if I can make a batter think the whole time I'm thinking, I got a better chance than him just being comfortable and having a great time up there.
Totally get it. Totally get it. DW, do you have anything there? I know you obviously watch every bit of conference, everything. Do you have anything there on the on base percentage? I mean, Vegas averages were ridiculous. Then you go to Florida, and like Joel said, you had two people that hit 700. I mean, do you notice anything there? Is there anything that stands out to you that's like, this is why?
Yeah, percentages go down on the big fields because one thing is the holes, like Bradley talked about. It's not as easy to hit the 5-6 hole or the 3-4 hole on a baseball field. Some guys still do it pretty well. You can hit, but you're thinking more line drive than ground ball, hard ground, or things like that. Also, the outfielders on a 300-foot field are standing at 290. They only go back 9 feet. On a baseball field, they're standing at 315. Center fielder's probably at 345. He can still go back 40 feet and catch a ball. So you can hit a ball on a baseball field 360 and be out almost everywhere except down the lines. So it's a mental thing a little bit, but I think of a batter. I've never hit on the baseball field, but I think the batter's thinking I have to hit it more perfect on a baseball field. Bradley's right about the swirling winds. It made outfielders look really bad in the stadium this past week. I don't envy those guys. And the infield were great. I didn't see any bad bounces. There was a couple of shots, I would call them more lasers that, an infielder missed than a bad bounce. And then pitching with the wind, I'll leave that to sport. I don't have much to say on pitching.
Totally get it. So, and before we go into the recovery / prep thing of this, all of you got a chance to hit the stadium ball this weekend. That is not obvious. It didn't look to me like the same ball from the major. I know sport with True, y'all didn't make the major, but I know you watched. I know you can see as a pitcher standpoint that ball didn't want to go anywhere. Bradley, we'll start with you. Did you like that stadium ball? Is it dramatically better? How do you feel about it?
This stadium ball, specifically in the stadium, when you got back on the backfields, there was a few balls that kind of dwindled in, and it could have been just the heat, just from them baking all day. But there was a few that would dwindle in the game that you hit, and you're like, man, I touched that, and it didn't go anywhere, right? So, but in the stadium specifically, the ball, I don't know if there was a difference. I don't know, but the ball in the stadium specifically was night and day better than the one at the major. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, you could miss a ball sometimes and still think, damn, that's got a chance to maybe squeak out of here. And then, when you really hit one, you're like, well, that's gone. I thought it was a really, really good ball for the stadium. I didn't have any complaints. I mean, it flew well regardless of wind, that kind of thing. And I think if they leave that ball the way it is, the major has a chance to be really, really, really exciting this year in October.
Beautiful, beautiful. Joel, how do you feel about it? I mean, you get to hit it and you have to field it, a lot closer than Bradley does. So how do you feel about this particular ball?
There should be like a tiny little bio over next to who's saying what, because when Bradley Jones says, "Oh, I touched that one, it really didn't go," that's not the same as anybody else doing that. Like, we keep forgetting that part. He says that because to me it's the opposite. When I touch, I'm like, yeah, and I'm standing on first. I'm like, that's right, touch that one. Like it's not the same. Like, we gotta really put like a type of like statistical, like put a bat next to him or something like that. But I had the complete opposite reaction. Like the stadium, I touched one in the stadium and it went halfway down the line. And I was just like, damn, maybe it was baking a little bit, stood on first. That was the most important part. But when I was in the backfields, like it was, you got your usual, the one that's facing the parking lot, that one's usually either blowing directly in or only left. And then you got what's the other one? Red Wilson. I think that's the one that's usually down just to right, because like usually they have like their own specific windage going. But like when there was no wind, I thought that ball was getting on the backfields. It was going exactly how I wanted to do it. There was not a moment where I felt like, when you hit a beach ball, you have no idea where it's going. It's a couple times last year where I was just like, well, I'm going to stop taking batting practice if I'm going to hit like this. So it's just like this year, though, it's like, all right, cool. You could definitely point out, it'd be like, ooh, you didn't hit this week to prepare for this. I caught your ass, But then like there's dudes who'd be like, hey, great job. You're a little fist bump right there. But yeah, I have a question for Mr. Jones, though. You said in the stadium, the holes look smaller or bigger?
From the infield,
they're smaller.
No, when you're hitting.
On the infield side of things, the holes look smaller to me because the guys are so far back.
Yeah.
Really? That's interesting. I've heard the complete opposite. Like the further you are back, the bigger it looks. So you're saying because they're so far back, it looks like they could cover more ground?
Correct. And it also depends. I mean, it kind of goes on how they're lining up, right? Like if you overload one side, to me, it looks like those dudes are standing right beside each other, and then, the glove side of the pitcher might be open, but that second baseman's so far back, you're thinking if I miss this ball at any, he's going to have a chance to go get it and throw me out.
That's so crazy. Because I look at my third baseman sometimes in the stadium, and I'm like, all right, let's get ready for this smoke signal. Let's send my carrier pigeon. Because sometimes I can't even, like, you got the line! So it's like, and for me, and as shortstop, I'm just like, oh my word, I'm going to need a map to get this one. But, like, I think you're right, though, because when I stand up there, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to hit it where they don't catch it, So it's
I guess I should probably word it a little different because even when those guys come like on a small field or closer, the holes look small there too, but I feel like I can hit it hard enough to get by them. To whereas I may step on a ball in the stadium, a ground ball, and I just feel like a guy of your caliber at short is going to have time to go get it and throw me out. To whereas on a small field, he's not going to stand a chance to get it.
No. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I also find it fascinating because I have one of our first base, Ed's a real pinpoint hitter, and he goes, man, Vegas, I can put it wherever I want. In the stadium, so much room, I don't know where to put it. And I'm like, that's saying a lot right there.
Right.
Well, let's talk about that with sport, being a pitcher. Using these stadium balls as a consistent hard ball. You're on big baseball fields. You're facing somebody like a Bradley as compared to somebody like a Joel. Do you want to move your infielders pull side hard on Bradley to be like, we're making that 5-6 hole look really bad? Or do you feel like there's any difference in the way that you would approach him on a big field compared to a smaller normal softball field?
So starting with Bradley, man, his stance, you don't get an option to have a guess to know where he might hit the ball. So me personally, I like my defense back against somebody like him because of what he said. I'm glad he went to that. When you're playing up close, as hard as he hits, even as hard as Joel hits, and a lot of people, you can't react quick enough to really, really make that play. The holes, to me, look smaller when they're closer, but as me as a hitter, and I don't hit nowhere near like them guys, I like them when they're closer because I know if I can just hit that gap with a flush ball, it's hard to catch it rather than playing back. And then if I miss it, oh my goodness, they got all the time in the world to go get it. So as far as Bradley goes, yeah, I would definitely play him back and hope that they can get to the ball as hard as he hits it wherever he is. Joel, he's just so crafty. He goes both sides, and he's the same way, and he's real patient. So he's a hard batter to pitch to because he ain't going to swing at something that's a ball. And he's really smart. He remembers. I've had him. We played, I think, in Myrtle Beach, and he was telling me, "Oh, I knew you was coming back with that pitch, and I'd be dang if I didn't come back with it." And he did it right, perfect where he wanted to go with it, and that let me know, what kind of hitter he is compared to the next man behind him and stuff like that. So I personally like the defense back regardless. The guys, even the DW hits it hard enough to get it by somebody up close, and that's how I feel. I'd rather play for one every single time rather than, you make a good play up close and you get a double play. I just think the reward ain't worth it to me.
Yep. Totally get it. So it sounds like we, as hitters, the having a little bit farther back infielder, while it makes the hole technically look a little bit bigger, as a hitter, I've really got to hit this ball to get it through this hole compared to the upper infielder. Makes sense. So let's, to kind of wrap these things up a little bit, let's talk about prep in comparison to a big field to a little field. So obviously we're going from dual in Florida, huge fields, to dual in Texas, not so huge a field. Joel, it is a quick turnaround from Vieira to Texas. We got 10 days. So in that 10-day time period, what do you do from a recovery standpoint, physically, and then I'm afraid to ask this, but mentally?
I saw what you did there. First of all, Texas is the only place I've ever been where I'm like, it's hot outside. Like, that heat is disrespectful. Like, that it's so hot, you can't not mention every time you go outside, you'd be like, damn, it's hot. Like, you can't not mention it. I'm born and raised in the South. I'm born and raised in South Florida. Like, I'm right there next to Cuba. I love the heat. I'm not going to tell you I'm super comfortable sleeping in it or anything like that. But, like, I like warm. I like, I like the beach. I like that stuff. And I went to Texas, and I was like, why? Like, why? Like, why is it like this? So, me knowing my body, right, you got to eat. Not just drink water. Like, water is just like essential. Like, you gotta constantly, water. But like, you gotta eat. So like, I have a whole like 3-4 boxes of Uncrustables that I just throw at guys whenever they're like mishitting balls, or like they like warning track balls. I'm here like, you need protein, and like boom, like you need to eat, or you could black out, which in the Marine Corps, they give you that silver bullet up the back door, and that's how you wake up. And you can't do that in Texas. So it's like one of those things where you got to eat, but like recovering and turning it around, it's the same thing as everything else. It's a marathon. It's a marathon. And then mentally, like sport, it's not that I have good memory. It's just I'm petty. I'm super freaking petty. I can't. Like, it's not gonna happen to me again, like type thing. Like, very spiteful, and it keeps me awake. Where it's just like one time in Atlanta, it was like 100 degrees for the whole tournament, and I made one throw in the 5-6 hole, and I blacked out, boom, because my whole right side cramped up so hard. I'm like, it's never gonna happen again, never gonna happen again. Like, so it's like one of those things where, like, you gotta remember. When you're in this comfortable, you're gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it real good. I'm gonna make sure that. But then it's hot. You're on the brink of losing your second game, so you can go home, and you're like, oh, do I make this last out? Do I really try to nut up here? And it's hot, and you guys are down by like 7, like just enough where like nobody gives you anything, but you want to, but you not want to. Like, that's where you gotta really freaking be like, nah, not today. Pick it up. Let's get a hit. Let's come back. Let's freaking face Resmondo at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Like, that's always a good thing for everybody.
Totally get it. So what I'm hearing is physically eat more, get a lot of protein, drink your water, mentally hold a petty Betty thought in your head. Got it. Okay. All right. Bradley, as a hitter, preparing from a big field where you can cut loose to a little field, what do you do differently between these two duels? Do you do a little bit more BP to keep the ball down? How are you handling it?
I wouldn't say more BP. I've kind of got a routine that I stick by. It's just a matter of, what tournament you're preparing for. Like, you're about to go to Euless where the field's smaller. So, like, when I go take BP, I'll work on keeping it down. Now I'll get pissed when I hit a homer, right? Like, I'm like, what situations you're supposed to hit a homer and things of that nature. And you feel like on a 310-foot field, it comes pretty easy just to be able to, flick it out. Whereas a big field, you really got to focus up and get in it, right? So for me, it's just when I go take batting practice, I'll focus on hitting my holes and try to keep it down. And I take BP on a smaller field. I take BP on a field that's probably like Vegas size. So I know if I'm keeping it down, it's going to be down, right? Like, and then obviously when I cut one and it goes, I get pretty pissed. From defensive side of things, running the outfield in a duel is a marathon. And, Helmer does a really good job of rotating guys in and out. But me, I don't ever want to come out. I want to play every game. And I know it's not going to happen because physically speaking, it can't. You play that many games in a weekend. You don't want to risk the void of injury or anything like that. So for me, it's like Joel said, staying well hydrated. I invested in some recovery leg sleeves this offseason, and it made a world of difference in Florida. I mean, I woke up Friday and Saturday morning feeling refreshed and ready to go and feel like I could play another 6-7 games that day. So I've taken the whole outlook on taking care of my body a little more serious this year as opposed to I have in recent years. Last year I pulled my hamstring at the duel. So, and that was one of my goals was to not leave the duel injured. Because you start tweaking hamstring and stuff, you're out a couple months and then you feel like you miss half the season because the season goes by so fast. So for me, it was just taking better care of my body, staying in the gym. And I hate working out. I mean, I can't stand it. It's literally the worst thing I've ever done. But I know I have to do it to be able to stay in shape and give myself the best chance to stay on the field.
I get it. Yeah, I know from a hate working out standpoint, I know I was watching the live feed and I heard DW say, Bradley Jones gets himself a double. He looks like he's been in the weight room this offseason. So, you definitely look like you've definitely changed the mindset of how you're prepping for the year. And it's good to hear that you came out of there unscathed. Now, Sport, we're going to talk about the pitching standpoint from the big fields where if you're like me, I work a little bit higher in the zone because people are going to pop up thinking they're going to hit it really far. They're going to fly out a lot of times, my outfielders, as compared to on a softball field where it's 310 down to dead center. Do you change your approach? Do you throw more knuckleballs, use that curveball you got more? How do you view that?
So I pretty much had the same approach on the big field. I mean, I like to work high and slow anyway. I like to try to mess with their timing more than making a knuckleball just move all over the place. I mean, I just feel like a knuckleball that's moving, you can't really control, and we all should be good enough where we're not just going to whip the ball. I work harder on slowing the ball down, speeding it up, deep, short, like that. On a big field, I definitely like to keep it as high as possible because I want everybody to try to hit it over the scoreboard. If you can do that every at bat, kudos to you. But I think it's worked out for me the few times I have been in the stadium. On a 300-foot fence, you got to work a lot harder. Depending on the team you play. If you play guys like Resmondo, I feel like it gives an A team or a B team a slight advantage if you can stay with them, let them get their home runs going. Now, home runs going, you got to have a pitcher that ain't really afraid because it's definitely coming down through there, to try to keep it down. But that's my approach on a 300-foot fence, especially playing the bigger guys, is working it a lot shorter and stuff like that to get more ground. Because, like you said, anybody can hit it at the 300-foot fence. Stadium, hit it all you want. I'm going to put it high and just show me that you can muscle it out of there. Because I feel like a higher pitch is harder to hit far rather than a little faster, flatter, where you can use the technique, your hand speed, and everything else. But let's see. I didn't get a chance this year. We had a bad game. We should have won and got a chance against Resmondo in the stadium, and we had one of our bad games, and we didn't get to do it. But I'm looking forward to it eventually in the stadium with somebody.
Totally agree. I get it. Yeah, the approach from a pitcher standpoint can absolutely change things. And like you said, there on the 300-foot fields, when you're playing a team with the group of folks that hit the ball like Bradley, which is not a lot of people, but when you get folks that are closer to that, it's the home runs are going to go. When they go, you got to be ready to make your plays that are hit at you. It's always a good thought process there. So that is pretty much everything we've got from the duel, recovery, prep, how everything went. We're going to wrap it up with some final thoughts here. We'll go around the room. Joel, you got any final thoughts for this? Anybody want to shout out, anything like that?
Shout out to specifically my outfielders, but to all of the outfielders that played in the duel. A lot of profanity of how hard it is out there. Like, not just the knuckleballs, but you're running a marathon all game long. And then you got to walk your happy ass all the way back to the dugout. And then guess what? You're up to bat. So now you didn't even get a chance to sit down. You got to put on your batting gloves, and everybody's like telling you hurry up. Be like, time blew down. And all of a sudden you hit a weak ass something through the 1-6 hole, and then you can't even leg out a double, and then everyone's mad at you, even though you're the fastest one on the team. I'm so sorry any outfielder that has to deal with that. On the contrary, I try to do the opposite. I try to constantly compensate and try to just do whatever you guys need. All the outfielders, super huge job. Okay, Mr. Jones said he'd rather be in the outfield than in the infield. Nothing turns me on more than when a giant animal like you comes at the bat. I'm like, I look at my third baseman like, today's the day, fellas. And I don't got to run nowhere into no gap or anything like that. If it gets by me, oh, well, hey, cut off. Like, I'm good. Like, it's one of those things where it's just like, bro, hit me with all your bullets. I'm cool with that. But shout out to JBL, Bay Area, and Epic. Damn, they killed it this week. Not killed it, but they did really well this weekend. Like, it was real fun to watch all those cats. Usually you get super duper teams like that built together, and you're just like, bro, you eye roll and it implodes and then all the drama. But on the contrary, it was actually pretty fun to watch everybody there. And then, that's all I got.
All right. Well, sport, final thoughts. Thank you for coming on today. I know we gave you about an hour notice. I really appreciate you coming on. Any final thoughts? Anybody want to shout out anything like that?
Man, I really appreciate, you asking me. It's definitely an honor to be up here with guys like Bradley, DW, just y'all in general, And, the only thing I like to shout out DeMarini just because I don't get to broadcast it because I'm at work, and Crown Gloves. They make great gloves. And my team, like Joel said about the outfielders, it was hot, we were tired, banged up, and my whole team never gave up. They fought through the injuries, wouldn't let us know they were hurting. And, if people can say what they want, sport this, sport that, I'm only as good as them 8 guys behind me. And if they quit, there's nothing I can do no matter how hard I want to win. So I appreciate them guys working as hard as they do, during the week, on the weekend, during tournaments. I really, really appreciate it. I want them to know, how glad I am to have all of them guys behind me. And I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And then Bradley, speaking of late notice, I gave you about 35-minute notice. Again, I greatly appreciate you coming on. Do you have any final thoughts? Anybody want to shout out, anything like that?
No, appreciate you guys having me. First and foremost, thank you for the sponsors that help with Resmondo and all the teams throughout the conference. Without them, this wouldn't be possible, right? Like, they put so much time and effort into this, and I'm fully grateful for them, and just looking forward to the rest of the year, see how it pans out, and good luck to all you guys.
Beautiful. Thank you again. And DW, any closing thoughts here? Obviously, thank you for everything you do from a coverage standpoint. You're a godsend for USSSA media. Do you have any final thoughts for this weekend?
Yeah, I want to thank Sport for coming in. He's an MVP multiple times last year. Bradley for the last second ad. Bradley had 4 home runs in the championship game of duel number 2. An impressive feat. Joel and Sport, you guys did well enough to score some pretty good points, and at least for True, to put yourself in the talk to make the major. Real quick thank yous, David, for hosting. I want to thank all the ball clubs, the new app for USSSA, the scorers. Paige Sanchez, one of them, right, Joel? They took it on. They scored all their games. Some of the teams really took to the app. We're going to make improvements, and the app's going to have live stats the rest of the year, so everybody get on board. Want to thank Eric from Conference Primetime and Victor Anderson, who announced a lot of games for USSSA Live, Bernie for USSSA Live, and producing our show here, Kelly in the back, putting us on Facebook. The directors of the tournament, TK, Jim Pilla, Tim, Jason Clay, Sean, Kelly, Stroh, Juan Martinez, thank you for all you did. I want to thank the teams for wearing colored uniforms instead of white for the most part. Get rid of those white uniforms. We don't need those. And the camera crews for their tireless efforts, and the umpires who I thought did a great job. You know, when we don't really see the delays during the game to argue about a call, I think they did a pretty good job.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, my only closing thoughts here, obviously, thank you for everyone that's joined us. I know we had a little technical difficulty there on Facebook, but thank you all for coming in and watching everything we do. The more viewers we get, the more Conference USSSA gets out there, the more softball can grow. Greatly appreciate it. I look forward to post-Texas when we have our next hit and sit, getting to tell you about my experience back. I finally got cleared. We're good to go. Be back on the mound, getting some swings, getting some pitches in. Really looking forward to it. But this has been Hit and Sit number 26. Look forward to having you all again post-Texas. Have a good one.